as a reporter, I was a good reporter. And to report on things that happen in the city, you have to become involved.
For 11 years, Ralph Klein was a very good City Hall reporter, in part because he got involved with both the elected officials and the frontline city workers. His entry into the 1980 mayor's race was laughed off by newsroom colleagues. But his platform of preserving sandstone buildings and East End Calgary caught on with citizens and worried his opponents.
The message coming out of Mayor Ross Alger's campaign headquarters is that there are two other candidates for his job that must be taken seriously: Ralph Klein and Peter Petrasik.
Klein's first campaign was ragtag, financed on a shoestring compared to his well-heeled competitors. His critics were quick to dig up dirt from Klein's past.
I've been a reporter for 11 years in this city, and I've traveled with bikers, and I've traveled with hoers, and I've traveled with gamblers, and I've traveled with people from the east end of town to the west end of town. And I've been in all kinds of trouble with the police.
But Calgarians were restless, looking for change. It was a jaw-dropping stunner of a victory.
Klein grabbed 47% of the popular vote and finished more than 16,000 votes ahead of the incumbent mayor, Ross Alger.
I started with $300 in my pocket, and that's how I started this campaign. And I had a sense of commitment, and I drew the greatest bunch of vagabonds, misfits, and beautiful people to my campaign who never once said to me, I have to work for this son of a bitch because I owe him something.
Don Braid is a City Hall and Legislature columnist for the Calgary Herald.
The fundamental reality of Ralph Klein, for me personally, of my personal knowledge of him, is he's a good guy, a hugely entertaining, decent guy who, by his lights from the formation that he had as a child, which was not easy, and the things that he accomplished, was trying to do the right thing for people. And he never, until toward the end, never lost his contact with the people.
And I've got to be quite blunt. The only thing that a politician has, not very little, not very much, but the only thing that he has is his word.
The man known to many Albertans simply as King Ralph was often blunt. And the key to his political success was that Calgarians first, and then the rest of Alberta, took Ralph Klein at his word, often whether they liked the message or not. It's something he reflected on when inducted into the Alberta Order of Excellence.
The people told me, never mind the protesters outside. You're on the right track. Don't blink. You're doing the right thing. And my day was not complete without a protest, or two, or three. It was fun. I miss the people.
At the ballot box, Klein was unbeatable, never losing an election. When problems arose, he was often able to turn a potential loss into a big gain.
I guess the word alcoholic is subjective. I do know that I have a problem.
Like in 2001, when an intoxicated Klein tossed money at a man at an Edmonton shelter, yelling at the homeless to get jobs. A few days later, Klein apologized and vowed to deal with his drinking.
What happened in the homeless shelter was not Ralph Klein, and he recognized that, and although there are people to this day who think that was the real Ralph Klein, that was not the real Ralph Klein. The real Ralph Klein is the guy who said, I got a drinking problem and I'm going to quit. And for the most part, he did.
It hasn't, I don't think it, well, that wouldn't be entirely true. It has. When you wake up with a hangover, it affects your performance.
As Premier, Ralph Klein ran Alberta for 14 years, Under his leadership, the Conservative government slashed spending, privatized services, including liquor stores and registries. He even blew up the hospital he was born in, all in his quest to eliminate Alberta's $23 billion debt. It was the Klein Revolution.
The main floor be used as a fitness center.
He was a City Hall television news reporter who went on to become mayor. During his first term, he gained national notoriety with his so-called bums and creeps comments.
There are a few people who come here to either look for a job and find they can't find one and then rob our banks and our convenience stores, or there are some people who come here for the sole reason of robbing our banks and snatching the purses and mugging our senior citizens. And those are the kinds of people I don't want in this city.
Blunt talk and folksy populism with his iconic Martha and Henry political masters. That endeared Klein to scores of Albertans. Since he left office in 2006, the former mayor and premier has been showered with tributes.
The Ralph Klein Center.
This was always my dream, to combine a high school with a facility like this. I am deeply honored.
This 30-hectare park.
He was the only living mayor to have a park named after him.
You see, this is the first time since Calgary's founding that a former mayor has attended a ceremony like this, where a mayor's name is given to a city facility. It's an unprecedented honor for an unprecedented man.
The university today conferred upon Ralph Klein, now Dr. Ralph Klein, an honorary degree that we did and that the university did in recognition of Ralph's outstanding contribution as a leader in this province.
To all Albertans and all the people who sent me good wishes.
As Klein's health failed, former Herald City Hall reporter and Klein biographer Don Martin questioned why the former premier had yet to receive the Order of Canada.
Created a legacy of sports
that changed last
and
November. Colleen Klein, with her husband's 1992 leadership campaign button pinned to the inside of her suit jacket, accepted Ralph's admission into the Order of Canada.
I think Colleen believes he'll know.
He served 3 consecutive terms as mayor of Calgary, during which time the city...
The Governor General and the office is recognizing a great Albertan and a great Canadian. I don't think there's anyone can dispute what Ralph Klein did for this province and consequently for this country. The success of the energy industry here today, many of the things that have occurred, getting rid of our deficit debt allowed that to happen. That benefits Canada, not just Alberta.
Don't cry for Klein at the Pasca.
Along with the tributes, Klein certainly had his critics. It was almost as if he courted controversy.
Even the negative reaction that he created among a lot of interest groups, people who work for the government, teachers, professors who had their pay slashed 5%, subsequently saw their pensions reduced and all of that. But even among those people, you'd hear people saying, well, we don't like what he did, but at least he did what he said he was going to do. And that was the central part, that the whole core of Ralph Klein's appeal, that he was, remember in 1993 and somewhat later, people in other parts of Canada were stunned that a politician made a promise to do something very, very difficult, reducing deficit, cutting deficit out entirely and reducing debt, and he actually did it.
I first met Ralph Klein here at Stampede Park back in the middle of the 70s. I was just 14 years old and he was a television news reporter. My oldest sister worked with Colleen Klein, so I got introduced. After my sister tired of placing my bets, Ralph agreed to put a couple wagers down for me. I can't remember if those bets ever paid off, but I know professionally as a journalist, I never lost when I bet on a Ralph Klein story.
And one as a politician.
At a 2008 Fraser Institute event in Vancouver, Klein, who was then the endowed chair in communication studies at Mount Royal College, summed up the relationship this way.
As a journalist, we held politicians with a tremendous amount of skepticism. As a politician, we absolutely hated journalists. And we wished that they would get out of our lives.
Klein was almost always good for a quote, a quip, or a story.
Now, Belinda roasted me as a conservative, but of course now she's a liberal. And I wasn't surprised she crossed over. I don't think she ever did have a conservative bone in her body. Well, except for one.
After getting just 55% support from party members in the 2006 PC Leadership Review, Klein stepped down as premier. He calls politics a blood sport. His political career was over.
You know, Ralph didn't have to go out that way. I thought that was probably the only really spectacular political misjudgment of his career. The only reason that in 2006 Ralph got the 55% is because he'd signaled after the previous election that he was leaving. Now, Canadian leaders don't do that. You can't do that in our system. You have to keep the decision on leaving until the minute you're leaving. You have to say, okay, I'm quitting the leadership, let's have a contest. And Ralph, it's really emblematic of how strong he was politically, that he could go on for more than 3 years after saying he was going to quit before the party effectively kicked him out.
I watched much of that from the front row. That signed cover of the Calgary Herald is the only autograph I've ever asked for.
From the mayor's office to the Ministry of Environment to the Premier's office, everywhere he went, good things and better things happened by the time he left. And if that's not a legacy, I don't know what is.
It would have been a legacy if all Klein accomplished was to be mayor during the Olympics.
Flag has been passed. And another part of the opening ceremony is complete. Mayor Klein with the flag for Calgary.
That working class kid from Tuxedo Park may have cultured the image as the ordinary Albertan. But politically, Ralph Klein was extraordinary. A one-of-a-kind politician. Rick Donkers, CalgaryHerald.com.